right.
All right. Got it. All right. Let's do a share screen. Let's now go over here and we're going to share and then we're going to hit this. So hello, everybody. Boy, I'm really glad to meet everyone. I love Florida. My family's retired down in Florida. I'm from upstate New York. And as you all know, it's a law that when you retire, you have to move to Florida. So I'm the only person that snuck away out to California, but now I want to go back to Florida. So that's why I'm connecting with all you guys. Love you guys and Florida. Okay, innovative thinking. Innovative thinking right now is probably the most critical thing that you really need to understand and to master. And the reason is that, let's take Chat GPT. Hysterical. I thought that intro was really funny. Everybody's using it. So that means that now you're on this par with everybody else. And that's the way it's always been. If you know all of the tools in your industry and your competitors and everybody around you knows all the same tools and they have access to the same tools, then really what's going to set you aside? What is going to give you that competitive advantage? And we've all seen it. I mean, if you look at Super Bowl commercials, the number one thing that sets those commercials aside, besides the $6 million budget for the 30 seconds, is the creativity that they put into the ads. And that is what's going to set us aside. So I've been asked for almost 20 years to put together an innovative thinking presentation. And it was only just recently that I was able to actually figure out what the formula was and to be able to share that. And as you can tell by the bio, I'm kind of innovative. I do some crazy stuff from time to time. And there had to be some kind of a formula. I mean, you just can't go out and just do it. So I spent a lot of time. I spent 20 years trying to figure this thing out. And now I'm sharing it. And over about the last 10 years, I've shared this with top executives in the biggest companies in the world. I even worked with Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and I single-handedly got him elected. So at least that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. Taj Mahal, and it's just amazing how worldwide innovative thinking is a necessity, especially nowadays. Let's jump into it. I'm going to cover a lot of material. As you know, you got a free book that comes with this, about 300-page book and 20 years of research. And I'm going to cover all of that material page by page. I'm going to do it in under 50 minutes, and that's going to be really innovative. Okay, before we start, yes, please ask any questions. Try to get my attention. Good luck trying to get me to stop speaking. I'm a speaker. I like to speak, but I'm here to answer questions. And if for some reason you can't get my attention, we can always address them at the end. There's going to be the links. If you haven't got the links for these slides, I want you to have the maximum takeaways for the slides and for the books. And in the meantime, I'm going to be watching you guys. So no checking your email, playing with your dog, jumping on YouTube, checking Facebook, looking at TikTok dance videos. I know we're still kind of Zoom burned out, but this is the best way to get information across the country. There's my bio. I stuck it in here just in case you haven't seen enough of it. All right, here we go. Invention, innovation, and creativity. I'm going to read these. Definition of invention is the act of bringing ideas or objects together in a novel way to create something that didn't exist before. Think about that. That's really important. Ford and the assembly line. Think of all the great inventions. They never existed before, and they brought ideas together. They didn't spontaneously combust out of the air. They brought ideas together, and you're going to hear a lot of that as we go through this. Innovation, introducing a new idea from one's imagination. Well, Einstein's theory of relativity wasn't really based on much else. That really was a pretty unique concept and that nobody had ever thought of before. That was real innovation. And here it is 100 years later plus, and he's still famous for that one innovation. And then creativity, the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships to create meaningful new ideas. Now, there's a key, the ability to transcend traditional ideas. That's part of what's trapping us into not being creative anymore, is our inability and our fear to transcend traditional ideas. And you have to eventually accept the fact that you're going to think different than everybody else because everybody else is not practicing creativity or innovation. We're going to break this presentation. You see how fast? Here, more caffeine. We're going to break this presentation down into 3 components. The first part is your brain messing with your head, where I'm going to show you how Solutions are right there in front of you, but you often can't see them because we have been conditioned. We've been trained not to. I'll explain more later. The middle part of this is going to be an actual formula, an actual 3-part formula that if you follow those 3 steps, you really will become more creative, more innovative. And then I'm going to give you a ton of really silly, kind of fun, homespun examples of creativity, kind of start us as a primer or a primer. And if anybody knows the proper pronunciation of primer, primer, please let me know, because I can't figure that out at all, as innovative as I am. But it'll give examples to show you how easy you can start out building and becoming more creative. So let's talk about your brain. Now, that's obviously not your brain. You still have yours, so that's somebody else's. Somebody want to just tell me what that is? Just real quick, just shout it out.
Question mark.
Any ideas?
I think Carl said question mark.
Good, good. Okay, he gets 10 points. Most of the people say a swan, Batman logo, ninja star. It is actually a question mark. And by the way, as we go through these, if you've seen these before, don't give the answer, because we want to make someone else feel foolish. That's half the fun of doing these. Yeah, it's actually a question mark. Almost no one sees that. And the reason is that we've been conditioned and trained to look for information black on white. Books, magazines, anything printed is black on white. So our brains immediately look for the information in the black color, not the white color. You would never see a book printed with white print on black paper. That would be completely ridiculous. So there's an example of, first, and a very simple example of how we're kind of tricked, because the answer to this is actually the white on black or the question mark. Okay, let's take a look at this. Anybody get an idea which is the darker of the 2 shades, A or B? That one's simple. Any ideas? Okay. Most people guess A. Yeah, and that'd be reasonable, because we're all familiar with checkerboards and shadows. But if you actually watch this, you'll find out that, here it comes, those 2 shades are identical. Now, that's almost impossible to believe. And the reason is because that cylinder is casting a shadow, and we know that checkerboards are black and white, complete opposites. Plus, you got the shadow. So our brain is jumping ahead. It's making assumptions. And that's how we can process information as fast as we do, by making assumptions. And we've been conditioned sometimes to make the wrong assumptions. Both of those colors, believe it or not, even though I keep staring at them right now, and there's no way that A and B are the same color. But yeah, the fact is that they are. That's how our brain messes with our head. Okay, so we got 3 images of a car. Tell me which image you think is the larger of the 3 images.
Number 1.
Number 1. Yeah, you can see that. I mean, it's probably twice the size of number 3. So let's take a copy of number 1. Now, I'm not going to change the size. I'm just going to move it closer to the other car. The fact is that they're all exactly the same size. So look at that for just a second. All 3 of those automobile images are exactly the same size. How could that possibly be? Well, your brain is messing with your head. We know that if an object is further away and it's larger, well, it's got to be much larger than something small and close. So our brain, even though I've told you the answer, it's almost impossible to see that. Well, a lot of times when we're looking for solutions, we're looking for that creative, that innovative solution. It's right there in front of us, but our brain is telling us something completely different, and it's obfuscating the actual answer that we're looking for. Okay, wheels on the bus. This is a bus. Just go with me on this. This is a minimalist bus. 100% of all grade school kids get this question correct. Which way, if this bus was to pull away from the curb, would go either to the left or to the right? Which way would the bus go? Left or right? Shout it out.
Right.
Right. Absolutely right. It's pulling off to the left. 100% of the grade school kids get this. You know why? Because they recognize that there's no door on that side of the bus. Something as simple as that. You could look at that picture forever. And you would never have enough information. But at one point in your life, you did. When you were in grade school, you understood that there was no door on that side of the bus, so it has to pull off to the left. We're adults. We're supposed to be smarter. Sometimes our ability to be creative and innovative becomes buried in conditioning. Okay, how many black dots do you see? Can you count them?
Nope.
Do you see black dots?
No.
Keeps
Okay.
changing.
Yeah.
Keeps changing from black to white.
Okay, no, honest, this is not an animated GIF. I swear this is just a JPEG. I'm not doing anything funny with the image. It's just a plain. But isn't that weird? Yeah, the dots keep moving, but they're not actually moving. What happens is you have rods and cones in your eyes, and the rods detect black and white. When you look at this image, it sensitizes those rods. And as your eye moves across the image continuously, it takes about 10 to 100 milliseconds for that chemical that in your eye to dissipate. So there's a little bit of a lag. So it looks like there's black dots until your eye can reset that particular rod. So here's an example of how physically, actually physically, your body itself should be able to determine what the answer is, but it can't. Isn't that weird? There's a lot working against us here. But the trick is that if we understand what's working against us, we can say, oh, okay, and then look at things differently and find the answer. Everybody knows that's an elephant, right? Okay, no problem. What is it actually? How many, anything weird about that elephant?
Had 5 legs.
5 legs.
Yeah, how many legs does it have? And you know what? Almost nobody recognizes that there's anything wrong with the legs. And here's another example how the brain looks at it, identifies it as an elephant, and then simply moves on. It doesn't do any further analysis. So 90% of the people in my audience look at it, never see that there's something wrong with the legs until I point them out. Again, a really good example of how your brain is making an assumption, jumping to a conclusion. And in this case, it's hard to change that conclusion, but it's an incorrect summary. Okay, anybody know what that is?
Florida.
Home sweet home.
It's actually a Colt 45. No, I'm kidding. Yes, it's Florida. That was a test to see if you guys are paying attention. Okay, so let's get into the formula. Let's take a look at that. This was the toughest thing for me, is what is the actual process that I go through to come up with creative ideas. Sometimes they're spontaneous. They just come to me. There's no question about it. But what I realized is that this formula had already taken place. I just wasn't aware. So once I teach you this and you practice it, you'll become better at it. Honest. Okay, so here it is. It's collect. Collect all the information that you possibly can about the situation. And I don't want to say problem all the time. It isn't about solving problems. When Steve Jobs invented the iPod, the little MP3 player, music player, we didn't have a problem. Nobody even knew what it was. Nobody wanted one. No, it didn't exist. He didn't solve a problem. He created something new that he then convinced us we couldn't live without. So it's not about just solving problems. It's coming up with cool ideas too. Second part is to calculate, is to let your brain put all this information together and come up with the exact answer. Put all the puzzle pieces together and then stand back and see what the puzzle picture actually is. And then the third part is communicate. And that's the part that everybody has trouble with. And I'm going to explain why and show you how to stop that. The first part is collect. You want to collect information. I want you to be eyesy. Use your eyes, use your ears, use the internet, any place that you can gather information while you're working on some kind of a solution to something. I want you to constantly look everywhere. Don't look to your industry. If you're having an industry problem and you look in your industry to try to solve that problem, you're wasting your time, because if anybody in your industry, they're going to have the same problem, they would have already solved it and you would already be aware. It's going to be someplace else, someplace that you're not going to necessarily know. So what you need to do is to collect the information, go to the internet, use Google search, any place at all that you can collect new and fresh information. That's where you want to go. As you start going through this process, you'll know that you're on the right track. And here's just one example. This is called the Mader-Meinhof phenomenon. That's not Bertie Madoff phenomenon. That's a whole nother presentation. This is about, have you ever wanted to buy that purse or buy that truck and you're trying to justify it and you're thinking about it quite a bit and you're weighing all the pluses and the minuses, and then now all of a sudden you see someone else carrying that purse, you see someone else driving that truck, you end up seeing it all. The cars are, it's really funny when you're thinking about buying the car, they're all over the place. That means that your mind subconsciously is locking on to that particular object. So it's searching for information continuously and subconsciously. So when the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon starts to happen, you know you're on the right track. And I know this sounds like, oh, that's really weird stuff. No, it's just a way to tell that you are processing this information. And it will happen. I know it's happened to you in the past. And one of the best ways to collect information is to use the 5 W's. What's his name? Oh, yeah. Seiichi Toyota, back in the 30s, he invented Toyota cars. He was a strong proponent of using the 5 W's and the H. And what that means is we all know what the 5 W's are: who, what, where, when, why. And it was actually invented in the late 1800s by the New York Times. The New York Times would hire these kids, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids, and pay them a nickel to go into Hell's Kitchen, Four Corners, or wherever, where they knew that they couldn't send a regular reporter in. And they said to the kid, look, get the 5 W's and the H: who, what, where, when, why. If they could answer those questions, they knew that they had enough to actually build out an entire story. And it was safer to send the kids into their own neighborhoods than for a reporter to go in. And that's where the term cub reporter came from. And the 5 W's became really important because it is true. So if you're trying to solve something, to come up with an idea, to solve a problem, to invent something new, if you do these 5 W's, and I mean really take them serious, put a lot of time into each of them. Who does it affect? When does it affect that person? How does it affect? Answer those questions in as much detail as possible. What that will do is it'll build a framework for your brain to start putting the puzzle pieces in. It makes you more aware of the scope and the possible solutions of whatever you're trying to invent or come up with or be creative about. Calculate. This is something that you can't do much about. As you're gathering this information, your brain is putting all those little bits and pieces together subconsciously. Now, remember, we all are right brain and left brain. Generally speaking, right brain handles creativity, it handles arts, color, music, all of the ethereal type information. The left side of the brain handles driving the car, walking down the stairs, balancing your checkbook, whatever. It's the analytical side. So you got analytical and you got creative. It's the creative side that's putting these pieces together. It's the analytical side, or the left side of your brain, that is gathering all this information. And by the way, keeping you alive so you don't fall down the stairs or get into a car accident or step out in front of a bus. So the left side is constantly busy. The right side over here is solving problems. So that process is going to take what it takes. The better you are at collecting information, the faster this calculation process will happen. For me, sometimes it's instantaneously. Sometimes it could take 6 months, depending upon the complexity of the problem. But the more you practice this, I promise, the faster that calculation part goes. But there's not much that you can do other than keep calculating. Now, here comes the absolutely critical part of this, and that's communicate. You have to allow your right brain the opportunity to talk to the left brain. Every time the right brain starts talking about pretty pictures and flowers and sunsets, the left brain says, hey, I'm trying to drive to work here. Hey, leave me alone. I'm calculating this. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm trying to type something. Right brain's like, okay, no worries. What we have to do is we have to give our left brain a break. We got to shut it down for a little bit of time. The biggest problem that we're facing right now is the younger generations will not put that cell phone down. The smartphone will not leave their hands. And as long as that phone is in their hands, that left side of the brain is constantly being stimulated. And that feels good, by the way. It's the left side of the brain constantly getting endorphins. It's not going to communicate that information over. Maya Angelou used to have a formula for doing this. Whenever she was going to write a poem or a story, she would go away, and she had a she shed basically in her backyard, and that's where she would ponder. She called it piddling time. So that's where the solutions that you probably already have in the right side of your brain is being communicated to the left side of your brain. So here's what I'm going to say. Turn off your phone. I'm telling you, this is true. My phone automatically shuts off at 6 o'clock every night, and it won't turn on until 8 o'clock in the morning. Tough luck. If you need to get me, call my wife. Otherwise, I don't care. When I leave the office, I leave the phone at the office, unless I'm leaving the building, in which case I keep it just for emergencies because I'm out on the road. Other than that, I never carry my phone with me. It really makes some people crazy, but you know what? Gives me a lot of time to think. And here's what I want to challenge you. When you go home tonight, don't touch your phone. Don't put on any music in the car. Give your brain some quiet time so that you can do this communicating back and forth. Trust me, if you just do those simple things. Now, here, let me just kind of give you an example to show you that I'm telling you the truth. Where do you come up with your best ideas? Anybody want to volunteer?
Shower.
Shower. Yeah, absolutely. That's the number one, by the way, Bob. You're right on the money. That is where you get your best ideas. Now, when you're in the shower, what is your left brain doing? Nothing. Does it have to worry about getting hit by a bus or driving to work or falling down the stairs or getting eaten by a tiger? No. So it just kind of chills. Now your right brain, because it knows the left brain is quieting down, that's when it starts kicking in, because it knows that's the only opportunity it's going to get probably for the whole rest of the day to start communicating those ideas. Some of the other places are exercising, jogging, running, at the gym, that whole genre. Driving in the car, if you don't play with your phone and you don't have the music on, that's another great place. My best place is 3:33 a.m. in the morning. My left brain shuts down, my right brain goes nuts, and I keep a pad and a pen on my nightstand just so I can capture any ideas that I get during the night. That's my best communication time. I wish I could say it was exercising, but you could probably tell by the video that's not my favorite thing to do. So yeah, it's the quiet times. That's when you get your best ideas. So if we all know that, then why aren't we giving ourselves more quiet time so that we would simply get more good ideas? Ain't that kind of crazy? It's absolutely true. And here's the other thing that smartphones are doing to people. In the year 2000, Microsoft did a survey on attention span of humans, and we came out at about 12 seconds. After 12 seconds, we tend to wander, which is why I'm trying to keep you stimulated during this, because I don't want you to wander. And they compared it to goldfish. So we were 12 seconds, goldfish were 9 seconds. Okay, so we had them beat. That's good. But then in 2013, they reran that exact same test, and we literally and honestly, humans have dropped the attention span below that of a goldfish. We went to 8 and goldfish hung in there at 9. And I'll bet if they ran that test 10 years later, with the proliferation of smartphones, I'll bet you it's below 8 seconds. So yeah, goldfish actually have a greater attention span than us, and we're doing it to ourselves. So we have to be really careful to allow that communication time. Making sense? I hope so. Okay. I want to give you some examples of innovation. And some of them are just kind of funny and again, homespun. But if you can see how the different ways you can look at things differently. Wayne Dyer once said, when you look at things differently, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yeah, that's absolutely true. When you sometimes you got to turn it inside out. Sometimes you literally have to look at it backwards or upside down, and you'll see some examples. And I'm giving you these because you'll look at them and say, well, I could do that. I should have thought of that, but we didn't. I did. So here's some examples just to get you started. Okay, garden hose. We know that a garden hose is a nightmare. Every time you take the garden hose off the holder, it kinks up, it locks up, you're trying to pull it, it knocks over the bird bath, you got the dog tied up in it, it's kinked around, it's wrapped around your neck. It's a mess. So how do you stop that from happening? Well, they have kink coil-free hoses. They don't work. They still kink up. So when I actually did it on this, because this is something that ticks me off, and I thought I could probably solve it. So I was thinking, okay, let's do the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, how. And when I teach this to executives, we actually get into it and do the who, what, where, when, why, how, and solve this problem. Believe it or not, even something simple like this. And what I realized is the reason that the hose kinks is us. We're creating the problem. We're twisting it around and twisting it around. Every single time we twist it around that coil, we're adding a kink into it. And then the sun heats it up, it cools off, and it actually, there's a memory in the hose that keeps that kink. So what if we did something different? Now, I'm not saying that that looks as good as the picture on the left, but I guarantee there's no kinks in it. As soon as I started doing that, I could take the hose out of the bib without any trouble whatsoever. Never had another kink in a hose ever. Something as simple as that. But if you analyze even something this small, you can find a solution. It's there. Yeah, you may not like the way it looks. Now, this is something I was thinking of even taking the slide out. Adding humidity to the air. I thought I'd leave it in as a joke for you guys, but believe it or not, the rest of the country has a problem with it. I just lived 20 years in Phoenix. And let me tell you, when you need humidity in the air. So I invented this. It's a little plastic thing. It could be vacuum formed. You put water in it and you put it over your floor vent, or you can hang it on the wall vent. And as the air passes through it, it simply sucks water out of that little reservoir and it humidifies the room. You don't need big, expensive electric humidifiers that clog up. Yeah, you do that. And it's dishwasher safe. I mean, how simple is that? Just let it sit on the floor. And if you want to put a couple of drops of essence oil in there to get a little bit of a scent, yeah, you could do that too. Real simple solution to adding some moisture to your air. Here's another simple solution. And we all face this. What do you do after you're done mopping? I mean, really, what do you do with a wet mop? If you leave it in the bucket, it sours. I mean, it really stinks to high heaven. So you can't leave it in the bucket. You can't set it on the floor. You're wringing out the best that you can, but there's no real solution. And my wife said to me one time, can you solve this? And I was like, I don't know. Let me put it through the 3 C's. Let me do the 5 W's. So I'm looking at it. I was like, okay. Oh yeah, I solved it for $1. Here it comes. $1 solution. Went to the dollar store, got a plastic pail, put 1 drywall screw through the back of the pail at about 4 feet in the air. When she's done, or I'm done with the mop, I don't want to be sexist, I mop sometimes. You just simply drop the wet side of the mop on one side of the bucket. It drips down into the bucket, falls out of the mop dries out, the bucket dries out, and the mop stays in place. No more stinky mops for $1. I know that these sound silly, but we're all faced with it and we've never taken the time to actually try to solve those problems. Okay, here's another one. This is called random association, cleaning up leaves. You guys got debris. Every time a hurricane or a tropical storm comes through, you guys got a lot of debris. I understand that. So everywhere in the country, we got it. And in California, we've got a lot of sticky stuff. Stuff that fights back. We got bougainvilleas. I'm sure you guys got that. We've got palm fronds with big spikes on them. Same thing in Arizona. And it was really tough. How do you clean all that up easily? Well, the first thing I did is I went to the dollar store and I got a tarp, but still that was good, but it wasn't a total solution. So then I got a stick, put a hole in it, and I got one of those hooks that you see that you hang stuff on. Now I can put all 4 of those corners. It closes right up. I can put it over my shoulders. I can carry it around, take it to the garbage can, drop it right in, and works for sticks as well. Again, it may seem silly, but it was a problem that I was having, and I was able to solve it very quickly, just with a tarp, a hook, and a piece of wood. And it really does work. This is great. After I wrote the Innovative Thinking Bible, which is my 3rd bestseller, my editor, my very best editor, her name is Sherry, she read the book and she edited it all the way to the end. And then I got an email from her, or a telephone call, and she says, "You're not going to believe what I just did." And I said, "What's that?" She says, "Well, you know how you get those faucets that are built into the counter here? Well, every time you wash your hands and you go to shut the water off, the water from your hand drips down onto the counter. So every time you use the faucet, at least once or twice, you got to have a towel nearby to clean the water off the counter, or otherwise it runs everywhere." And it made her crazy. And I don't blame her, because I have one of those too. So this is what she came up with. She went to the dollar store and got a placemat, cut a hole in it and a slot, bent it and then just slid it underneath the sink. What happened was now is that when you go to shut it off, the water drips off your hands, hits the plastic placemat, rolls right off into the sink. Solve the problem. You guys can do this. Now, if you can do this for something this small, you can do it for big stuff. Here's another example. My daughter, while going through, putting herself through college, she worked at Outback Steakhouse, the restaurant, and she liked dangly earrings. That was the big trend at the time. And they told her that she could wear dangly earrings, assuming that they were no bigger than a quarter. So I thought about it for a while because she liked real ornate dangly. So I made her these. By the way, that is not larger than a quarter. That happens to be exactly a quarter. And she almost got fired, but we all got a big laugh out of it. They were dangly and they were not bigger than a quarter. Just a different way of looking at things. Okay, round peg in a square hole. By now you've seen it. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that that's the logo on the book. 20 years ago, somebody said, geez, you're like a round peg in a square hole. So I thought about that. I didn't know if that was a compliment or if it was an insult or what it was. And after giving it some thought, I went back to the guy with this example. I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I fit perfectly. If you look at things different, everybody sticks the round peg in the square hole like the image in the middle. How about turning it 90 degrees? It fits perfectly that way. Look at things differently and you can solve the problem. Fish tank and fountains. We all like tabletop fountains. We like that white noise. The water is something primal about it, something that's really relaxing. And guess what? A lot of people like fish tanks. I had a fish tank for 20 years. They're also really relaxing. How come no one has ever done this? Taking a fountain, landscape, you got the water, you got the pump. Why not have a little fountain that sits on top of the fish tank and the water runs down these waterfalls and then just goes into the fish tank? You got the filters, you got everything. It's already there. I think that would be cool. I would like one of those. Give me a few more. Shower head. Everybody's got one of these because regular shower heads don't work and you can't get to certain parts with a regular shower head that's shooting down from above you. So cool. But when you get all soaped up, like under your arms and you're holding the wand, how do you actually scrub the soap under your arms or other places? It's a problem, I think. So why don't we take vacuum attachments and make them so that they just simply snap onto the shower head? That way you can scrub your back. It can be a loofah. Let your imagination run wild with what type of attachments you'd like to see for your shower head. I mean, why not? They're all waterproof. You make a little rack they snap into and you pop them on, pop them off. Nobody's ever thought of that. It solves a problem. Another one, my wife had broken down on the freeway one time and we had those little triangles. Problem with that triangle is the first semi-tractor trailer truck that goes by blows it over. You see it like flipping down the highway. The nice thing about them is they're small and they're lightweight and they're plastic and they're cheap. Then how do I solve that problem? Well, do you remember these where you punch the clown and it's got a little sand in the bottom and it falls over and pops back up? Why not make a highway cone out of that same kind of plastic with a little bit of sand in the bottom the same way? They'll compress down into a little 4-inch square. They don't weigh anything. They'll be super cheap to manufacture and you just blow it up, put it on the freeway. A semi comes, it blows it over and it stands back up. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Why not do that? And then when you're done with it, just deflate it, stick it back in your trunk. Again, no one's ever given that a thought. This is one you guys might appreciate. Again, in Phoenix, we got sticky stuff. We got bougainvilleas with gnarly needles on them. And every single plant in Arizona fights back. So trying to get them into leaf bags is impossible because it tears the bags, it hooks in, it's a mess. Think differently. I took a garbage can, I cut the bottom out of it, turned the can upside down, and I put the bag on the outside. Now, at first you got to think, let's use the can upside down. And then the second thing is put the bag on the outside. Now I can push anything I want in. They scrape down the side of the hard plastic can. They fold up, they crunch down. You can compact it, step on it. Then you simply pull the garbage can out of the bag, tie it, and drag it to the curb. Simple solution. It really works. I actually own one of those. Here's another one. When our granddaughters were young, about 8 years old, they came over to Arizona to spend a week during Easter, and we got them coloring books because, you know, if you have an 8-year-old kid around, you got to do everything that you can, prepare ahead of time to keep it busy, or otherwise it'll just destroy your house. So we coloring books. So she said, Papa, I'd like to color a coloring for you. I said, yeah, that'd be great. So we sat for a long time, picked out the right one. And I said, here, sweetheart, I said, here's what I want you to do. I know everybody's always told you to color inside the lines. I want you to color outside of the lines. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had no idea what she was going to do. She was totally perplexed. Color outside of the lines. Now, this isn't the original because it wore out, but this is about what it looked like. She took the most vibrant colors and she colored outside of the lines. And between the vibrant color and the black, it almost pulsated. It was like a neon sign. It was so amazing. The next time you get your hands on a coloring book, all I'm asking you to do is try it. Color outside of the lines. Pick the brightest colors, put it adjacent to the black lines. It's absolutely crazy. So I had no idea. And because she was 8 years old, and unfortunately, because she trusted me, sorry about that, she didn't know that she couldn't do it. That's really weird. When they did a survey not that long ago of grade school kids, and they said, how many kids here think that they're creative, that they're innovative? 98% of the kids raised their hand thinking that they were creative. They did the exact same survey with high school kids, and only 2% said that they still felt that they were creative. Well, what happened? Color inside the lines. Stay in line. Don't chew gum. Our parents, our pastors, our teachers, all of the people that we trusted the most conditioned us to follow what everyone else was doing in every possible way. And you really can't blame them. I mean, we're all in therapy still, probably blaming our parents for everything that's gone wrong in our lives. But you really can't blame them because they felt that if we conformed and didn't think differently, that we would fit in better, we'd get a better job, a better spouse, and we'd have a better and happier life. That's where it went. That's how we went from 98% creativity to only 2%. And we've got to get that back. It's still in there. We're just suppressing it. I think I got one more, and then I'm going to show you the final one, and I'll open it for questions. A friend of mine was a real estate agent, said, what can you do for me? So I thought about it for a while. I said, well, people who are buying property only care about whatever the interest rate is and what the principal that they're going to borrow, because everybody knows what they can afford as a mortgage, a monthly payment. So they want the maximum amount of house. Well, that's depending on two things, how much you're borrowing and what the interest rate is. So I did this for his business card. He has his regular business card, but this little graph is on the back of his business card. And here's what happened. This was over 20 years ago. I did this for him. He invited me out to lunch. We went out to lunch and he took this raggedy, wrinkled business card out of his wallet. I said, what's that? He said, that's the business card that you designed with this graph on the back of it. He said, I got a call from a client 20 years after I sold him a house. He still carried that business card because it was so handy that he can just look in that chart and know exactly what his monthly payment was based on interest rate and amount borrowed. Just think about it. Who's the who, what, where, why, when? What is important to the real estate client? That's it. Money about borrowed, percent, and what your mortgage payment's going to be. How simple is that? But it made all the difference to him. He made a sale 20 years later. So the question is, oh yeah, you can cut a bottom out of a garbage can or put a waterfall in a fish tank, but could you create $1 million idea like this? Yeah, actually you can. And I'm going to show you how I did this. I was the director of marketing for the Port of San Diego and San Diego International Airport. And I came in because everybody hated them. They hated them. The people actually would egg the employees as they were going to their cars. We had a problem. So they said, we want you to build some kind of a marketing campaign that turns us around. So I said, okay, how much budget do I have? They said, well, none. Well, how many employees? How many people do I have to work? Well, none. What resources? Well, just kind of you. Oh, okay. And you want me to do all this with no money and no people and no ideas? So I said, yeah, I can do that. Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, I went in my office, closed the door, whiteboard, love whiteboards. So I said, okay, what are we going to do? Let's go after the kids. Apple did it with their computers. They put them all in the elementary schools because they knew that eventually when the kids graduated, they'd want them in their businesses. McDonald's did it with their habit trails, their tubes, whatever playgrounds. Yeah, if you get the kids, then you get the parents, you get the grandparents, you get the care providers. So yeah, get the kids. So that's something I knew that I could do. If I could figure out something for the kids, I would get everybody else. Worked for those two Fortune 500 companies. So yeah, you do the who, what, where, when, why. What do kids like to do? Well, we know that they like to play. Of course they do. Habit trails, games on computers. That's kind of a no-brainer. But what do they like to play with? Well, habit trails are fun. Computer games are fun, but really toys, something tangible, something in their hands. They like to play with toys. So, okay, so there's that. So again, you can see that this is not complicated. This is not rocket science. Anybody could do this. What is the only practical marketing medium? How can I communicate? Well, at that time, I had no marketing budget. I couldn't do TV, radio, newspaper. I had no budget, but I did have the internet. So I thought, okay, the only way I can connect with these kids, parents, families, schools is through the internet. So I'm just answering these questions. Then I thought, if I'm going to make a toy, it has to be tangible. Kids, they got great imaginations, but they really want to touch and feel and interact with something. So I thought, okay, so if we're using the internet and you're using computers, here's the tough one, but you'll get it. What is the only thing that can create something tangible, something that you can hold in your hand that's connected to a computer? And really the answer, there's only one answer: a printer. So the solution was, at this point, I'm telling you, that it was 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I just need to create a tangible toy for kids to play with that can be distributed over the internet. Okay, what does that mean? But there was my solution. There was my 5 W's. So the first thing I did is I worked with United Airlines, because I was the public information officer for San Diego International. And I created these 3 pages, a PDF. Nowadays, it doesn't sound so much, but 1999, the internet was only 4 years old, actually less, 3 years old since people were using it. But I said, what if we took and we created these parts and we created a PDF, we can distribute it over the internet, and you can then print them on your end and build it into something that was tangible. And I did a contract with United Airlines, and I said, pay me 10 cents, just 10 cents each time somebody downloads one of these off of your website. And here was the pitch. I said, what if I can create a specialty advertising product similar to a t-shirt or a coffee mug with your marketing message and logo on it, which we can change every 15 minutes if you want, and you can't do that with a t-shirt or a coffee mug, and where your customers will represent all demographics, men, women, children, rich, poor, across all cultures and ages, and will actually ask for it, not like a coffee mug. How many yard sales have you gotten rid of all of your promo coffee mugs? And I'll handle the manufacturing fulfillment anywhere in the world, 24/7, 365, and I'll do it instantly. And each time I fulfill one, it will only cost you 10 cents. Are you interested? So United Airlines said, yeah, 10 cents, a marketing piece. Yeah, put us down for that. So we set it up on their website. I went to Chicago and we got it all running. And after the first 30 days, I got a call from my contact at United, said, we can't honor our contract. I said, what do you mean? And I said, well, they said we had too many downloads. I said, yeah, but it was only 10 cents. Well, they had 750,000 downloads. So they're like, we don't have the budget. We never thought it was going to take off like that. And I said, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay me anything, because I knew at that point that I was onto something. So I actually built a company back in 1999. It's called Paper Models, Inc. And I have over 100 school projects and other models, the 21 California missions, the Alamo, all of the buildings in Washington, D.C., the Capitol, the White House, Jefferson Memorial, the Revolutionary buildings, Philadelphia, Boston. And basically on a Sunday night, when you know your kid has got a project due the following morning on Monday, you can go to the website, put in your credit card, and you can pick from any one of these 100 different projects. And for under $10, $9.95, it downloads a PDF. It even downloads a 2-page history so that you can write the report. And an hour later, little blue scissors, it actually builds into an architectural replica of whatever you are studying. How cool is that? Now, here's another thing that's cool. I have 3 US patents on it, because here's the deal. There's no human intervention. It's a PDF. It's 100% automated. And I have 3 online stores, eBay, Shopify, and Etsy. And I just hear my computer go, cha-ching, Cha-ching. And that's another $10 in the account. And since 1999, it's generated over 60,000 customers and generated over $1 million in revenue. You guys could have done it. You saw with the questions, you saw the process, the 5 W's, kids, toys, tangible. It was just that simple, but it actually turned into $1 million idea. So here's something that wasn't solving a problem, but it actually created something completely different. And it's called Paper Models Inc. or Paper Models Online. If you want, go take a look at it and see how cool it is. I think it's totally cool. And I've been running a continuous e-commerce online presence for more than 23 years. I don't know anybody who's had an online store for more than 23 years. So I love it. Okay, so here it is. Here's the final slide. You got the same tools as everybody else. You're fighting everyone else that has the same tools. You guys are all equal. They know the same stuff you know. So how are you going to win? How are you going to be that Super Bowl commercial? How are you going to come up with that next $1 million idea? You got to think different. And look at these slides now and look back on what I said. Review this video. You can do it. It's not hard. There's a formula. Look at things different. Turn things upside down. Associate unassociated things together to form new solutions. So honestly, take the same tools that everybody else has, but just be a little bit creative and you're going to win. You will be more than competitive. You will succeed. Just that easy. Ta-da! Okay, Carl, you out there?
I am.
Okay, everybody still awake? Nobody run out screaming?
Let's see, do we have anything in the chat, Elliot? Chat's clear right now, but we're taking any questions.
What?
We're all
Here's-
just trying to absorb all the amazing perspectives you've given us, sir.
There's a lot of data there.
Will this presentation be available? Well, the recording will be available, so we can go back through and just reinforce some of what you've shown us today. So.
Carl, you going to make this available on pay-per-view or on demand?
We will put it in the FBIA online portal for access to any of the members.
Excellent. Good. And by the way, while it's up there, put it in the description. Anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. It's just lon@safko.com.
Okay. You have a question from Bob. How do I adapt this to startups that need to simplify their product, service, target market?
Yeah, I love that. I built 14 companies. And as you know, it's 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. Boy, Thomas Edison was right on that. It's amazing. So what you can do is they're talking about product, service, target market. Pick one. Let's take the product. Who, what, where, when, why. Think of all the different ways that product can be used. And I do this with companies where their product is starting to get a little bit stale and we're trying to identify new markets. Think of every application that you can think of. And if you can't think of anything, then get out on the social networks and create some kind of a contest. Who did it? Duct Tape did it. WD-40 did it. And they literally came up with thousands of applications that nobody would have ever thought of at either one of those two companies, both Duct Tape and WD-40. So get out there and ask your clients. When I wrote the Social Media Bible, I went to 1,000 people and I said, there's social media books out there. What do you want to see? And they told me, and I just took that formula and I wrote it that way. 850-page book, sold $2 million in copies. Yeah. So ask your customers. Same thing is for target markets and service. Go brainstorm, get different people in the room and just take one thing at a time. How does it work? How does it affect people? When do they use it? What are they doing when they use it? Ask every possible question that you can. And what you're going to see, all of a sudden, this pattern will start to emerge where you'll see new target markets, new demographics, new applications. It really does work.
Thank you, Lon. We got one more question from Ryan Lilly at FAU. Can we get paper models made to look like each of our incubators? I want a mini Sid Martin and a Micaflex for my desk.
Matter of fact, yes. Yeah, a lot of the models were requests by different people that I didn't think of. Again, it's going back to, your target audience and asking them what they want. Yeah, you can do that. And it's cool because you can email them and it just prints on paper. And here's the best thing. And I've worked with United Airlines, British Airways, Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, Kia, Department of Interior, is that when you send these things out and give these things away as corporate specialty advertising products, when the customer builds it, they have time invested in it. So it makes a psychological impression, and they won't throw them away because they have invested in these things. So they keep them around for a really long time. I've seen some United Airline airplanes sitting on people's monitors 1 and 2 years after I distributed it. 1 to 2 years still on the monitor. Well, how are you going to get your corporate name in front of a client for 2 years at the cost of nothing? Yeah. Good thinking. See, you're thinking out of the box. I like that.
All right, any more questions?
Mm-mm.
I think we're good.
Here's your last chance. I am your personal consultant right now.
You guys have,
And let me throw it out again. I want to come to Florida. I'm already partially packed. I want to relocate. So if you know anybody, this is a sales pitch. This is what's in it for me. Yeah, seriously. I don't even have to explain why I don't want to live in California anymore, do I? Okay, enough said. So if you know anybody, I'm on my way, and I'm less expensive than you think. Don't be afraid.
all right, thank you, Lon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody coming out today. I know it was an effort to take a whole hour out of your schedule. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Lon, thank you. In the 6 or so months that we've gotten to know one another, I appreciate your generous spirit and your passion for innovation and creativity. And on behalf of the association, thank you for making this available to everybody this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. It was an honor to work with you. Truly. Thank you. Okay, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.